Hello everyone. I appreciate you visiting back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I'm making this video because the last video I made on this machine, you may have noticed if you saw the video that I discovered that I had two problems going on with this Kenmore. The first one was it has sat for 30 years. The old oil was gummed up and it was and still is slowing the machine down because I haven't loosen the oil problem. But part of the reason it was so locked up, even more so than I'm used to seeing, especially for a Japanese or an American made machine, or any of the singers from the UK, was that there was thread, and the thread was stuck. And it was stuck in part of the mechanism that moves as the needle bar is raised up and down. And I was able to get the thread out. You can see it down here. Little pieces, different pieces, and I wanted to kind of, it's very hard to see this. I was trying to use a combination of natural and electric light to show this. It's very hard to see any kind of thread, least of all black. So I thought I would do a little bit of a simulation here to try to explain what it was I was trying to fix and what caused the issue. When you have thread jams, you can have more than one. You can have more than one piece of thread. Some machines will typically, you see thread jams in certain areas. You normally will see thread jams down here in the shuttle area where thread can get caught. Typically thread gets caught in between tight spaces, and it particularly gets caught in large amounts when it is around something that's rotating. So there's a drive shaft and a little something on the shaft. It creates a tight space. Another area would be over here where the hand wheel is, and of course as that drive shaft turns. And that happens because very often because your bobbin winder is in that area, and all it takes is a piece of thread. You might not even know it broke. And here's the other thing that really can complicate things. You can have a thread, a piece of thread, and that piece of thread will get wound when something is moving, and it'll be wound, let's say it's wound counterclockwise. And then a new piece of thread can come in either at the same time or at another time of use in the machine, and it gets wound, but somehow it gets wound clockwise. You might think, well, how can that happen if the machine only moves in one direction? I'm not entirely sure, but I have seen it. I had a FAF that I spent hours. I got all the thread out, but again, it was one of those things where you couldn't even see the thread until you got the hook off, the bobbin case out, and it was in the very back. And I had thread. Very often, I would have to either curl the thread one way, and then a different color thread, have to curl it another way. And so very often, the best technique when you're trying, once you know where the thread is, I didn't even know this thread was here, on this one because it was black and it wasn't showing up very well. One of the things you do is when you have a hold of the thread, don't pull so hard and try to yank it out, because what will happen is you'll break it, and then you may have a tiny little stub and you can't get a hold of it, and it's permanently stuck somewhere, and that's not fun. Unless you want to disassemble the entire machine, which sounds like, lots and lots of hours and effort for the sole purpose of getting out a piece of thread. So little thread can cause a lot of pain. Now, one of the things I typically tell people to do is you're going to take something like, you can use tweezers. I have a couple of sets of really small needle nose pliers, but even the set of tweezers, if they have enough grip, can work. In the case, I ended up using these on this particular situation. So what I wanted to do today is kind of try to simulate what I was doing. I have some cotton string here. Now this string is obviously not thread, but it's larger and it's white, so maybe it'll show up. So what I was doing, and you may have seen some of this in the other videos, what you may note, and we'll zoom in here a little bit. So I want you to take a look at this. So right here is the little space. There's a lot going on here. There's a piece of steel here, and there's a piece of steel here. And this is a rod, right? And it rotates, and there's a gap here because these two pieces rotate against each other. That's where the thread was stuck. And the thread was wrapped around but there were different pieces. Sometimes the thread was wrapped around clockwise or counterclockwise. And the technique used for any thread jam when you're in this situation is, let's say you find the thread tail that's sticking out where it's stuck at. Take something like these pliers. Do not yank it. You don't want to break the thread. And if that thread has been there, it could be, it could be somewhat brittle. So be gentle. Take a hold of the thread and just kind of get, like you were holding the tails of threads when you're getting ready to sew, right? So just make sure you have a hold of it, but don't pull hard. It doesn't take much to hold the thread still. And then I will take, you can't see this, I've got my hand on the hand wheel, and you're going to move it back and forth. Okay, and as you do, the thread hopefully should move one way or the other. In my situation, this was extra difficult because I can't simply hold the thread and simply unwind it if you were like winding a yo-yo or something. And unfortunately, because this vertical piece is here, this right here, I was in the situation where I had to literally, I found that half the time the thread wanted to unravel clockwise, and so I was pulling it around. And so I would do two things. I would grab the thread on this side, right? And once I had a hold of it, I would hold the thread, right? And then I would turn this and I would hold the thread still, and as I did, I could get some of that. You can see, if I get my hand out of the way for you, you can see I'm trying to simulate what I was doing. And essentially what I was doing is I'm turning the hand wheel of the machine forward, and I'm holding on to the thread, and as I did, I could pull and get some, I could literally get some slack. I was loosening the thread, right? Well, I did that for a little bit, and you can see that now the piece is actually, it's actually moved downward. It's sitting down here. Now, as I would do that for a little bit, but every time I came around, okay, so if the thread is like this, it's very hard to get hands in here because it wasn't designed for that. So I'm having to sort of finagle it there. Okay, so imagine that this white string is wrapped in that crevice, okay, and it's wrapped in there snug, but it will move because the crevice is big enough. The thread is not jammed in there, but it's wrapped in there, and I have to kind of get it out. Every time I would hold the thread, let's use this tool, get out of the way a little bit. Every time I would hold the thread still and I would move this, I would get some slack. But in order to keep doing it, I wanted the thread to come down and keep going, or not keep going. I wanted the thread to go counterclockwise. I was holding it counterclockwise as I moved the machine clockwise, if that makes sense. You're pulling the thread in one direction, moving the machine in another. And what I was having to do is get some slack, and I kept getting it longer, and then I would have to take the thread, once I had it, like this side here, imagine this here on the right. That's the loose thread I was getting, right? Well, once I got just so much, I couldn't get any more because I can't go past this object that's in my way. So what did I do? I would take the thread and I would push it with my scissors or my pliers, whatever I could, and notice what I'm doing. I'm actually putting the thread behind, make sure this is showing up for you. I'm putting the thread behind this vertical piece because I can't magically make the thread pass through it. So I'm pushing the thread like this, okay? And as I do, I get it to the other side. And then I can turn with the hand wheel, I come down, and then I come around from the other side and I pick up the thread. Wherever you are, thread, come here. Okay. And so I would get a hold of the thread, and then I would continue to take up more slack until I brought the mechanism. As I'm turning it, it comes up, and then I have to repeat this process. I'm not sure if that's really demonstrating it for you, but essentially you loosen some, and then as you turn this, you have to stop, push the thread back. You're not putting it back on where it's caught. You're pushing the loose thread underneath here and then grabbing it from the other side. Now I can come on the left side and grab it and keep going, right? So I've got thread here. I'm on the left side. I'm pulling thread up to get it loosened because it's wanting to loosen. It's wanting to loosen in a certain direction, right? And then as I come around, I've got loose thread Uh-oh, but I can't push it, so now I've got to push it backwards and then pick it up on the other side. You're basically unwinding something clockwise, but in order to do that, you've got to unwind a little bit, push the thread behind the obstacle, and keep unwinding it until you get it out. And I did, and it took me about 45 minutes with this little bit of thread. Let me show you. Here's the grand total of what was there. It doesn't look like much, or maybe it does. This thread was stopping this machine from working. Now, one thing to note, you say, well, everything's good to go. All I have to do is oil it and turn it on. No, we're still not ready. Well, why not? Because. Now, what I should have seen if I did not have a thread issue is this. When I turn the hand wheel, just like so, right, it's very slow. It's moving. You can see the shuttle moving down here. And let's pull that up and you'll see the feed dogs. You see the needle going up and down. And again, this is just vertical. Let's see if I have, I'm going to turn this, when you have the red there, that is, when you have red, that's usually your home base. That's where you start, right? So this machine, of course, it is both straight and zigzag. I'm not even worried about helping to restore the zigzag yet. You got to walk before, or crawl before you can walk. And then, of course, I'm not even touching the feed dog adjuster yet. Those are things that come later. First, we got to get her to do straight stitch, just up and down movement. So here I am doing this, and it's moving. You can say, well, that's okay, but I'm having to work really. It's pretty stiff. Okay. Now, underneath, in the earlier videos, I tried alcohol, tried some heat, and I tried some penetrant oil. And I tried the PB Blaster. I don't think it's any worse than any of the others. It stinks. I don't like it, and I prefer not to do it. And I would suggest to you, don't use that stuff indoors if you can't help it. Okay? It is supposed to eventually evaporate, but I'm not a fan of doing that. Typically, I will do this outdoors, but it's too cold to be out there right now. And I wanted to make this video because I can't, when I have my own machine, I want to make a video. If it's something I have to do outdoors, like the old Kenmore free arm, the basket case that you all are still waiting for me to save, that's something I can put off. But this machine does not belong to me. This is my client's machine, and I need to, in the next week or so, I'd like to have it ready for them. So I went ahead and tried the penetrant. I think what I'm going to do for the top, and then I'll go back underneath, is to try, I'm not going to add sewing machine oil right away. I'm going to try something else. I have a new product that I have found that I want to share with you all to see if it might help. It's something I've not used before, but I'm interested in trying it. And I will also be adding, after that, I'm going to try, let's back up. I'm going to try more isopropyl alcohol. And then I'm going to try this new product that I will introduce you to, new to me anyway. And then lastly, I will add sewing machine oil, and we will see what we get. I think we're going to be okay. But again, that's with straight stitching up and down. Once I get that settled and going, assuming there are no more hidden sneaky threads in this machine, then I will begin to work on the zigzag movement. And then lastly, I want the feed dogs to be adjustable. Most of my clients never use that. Most people who bought the machines new never use it, which is one of the reasons it gets stuck. But in for a penny, in for a pound. I hope this was helpful, and this was the best. I don't even know if this helps explain things, but when you look at a mechanism and you have trying to get something off of it, if it's behind it, you can unravel it, but then you've got to, you have to move the mechanism and move the string that you have gotten loose, move it to where you can now unravel it some more, a little at a time. I'm very happy I got this out. I hope there's no more left. I don't see any. That doesn't mean any is not stuck in there. Who knows? It's entirely possible. But, you know, you do the best you can, and you make the best assessment. But when I shine this flashlight in here, and again, what are we looking at? We're looking right there in that spot. Right. Make sure I can get this right in front of the camera. So right here, not here, not here, but right there. There's a gap where those pieces move together. And when I shine the flashlight and I'm moving it all around, I don't see any thread or hair popping up. If there is one in there, it's tiny. Who knows? It could be in there. I don't know. But we're gonna press on and keep moving and see if we get more and more movement. If we do, I know I have a lot of old oil in here that I've got to clean off. And if I do that, and the machine starts to wake up, and it has this moment when it really starts to kick in, and you can feel the power of the machine, that's probably, maybe, an indication that most or all the thread is gone, and that we're only dealing with basically a machine that's been dry for 30 years, and it needs help, like the Tin Man, as I've used as my metaphor before. So, anyway, I don't know if that's useful or not for you, but I hope it was helpful. And this lovely, aesthetically lovely Kenmore, really strong machine from Japan, I hope to have it done in about a week or so. Stay tuned for the next video when I will demonstrate this new product. Take care.